I guess to describe where I come from in all of this, I'll just start right at the beginning. I grew up on the south coast of England, and really growing up, I never imagined that I would be somewhere like this, sitting on a panel, talking to all these smart people about climate change. I started playing golf when I was 2 years old, and for the first 10 or 15 years of my life, really, that was my trajectory. Prospects of a professional career in golf were what I was looking into. And it was only really at about the age of 15 that I made a dramatic change in direction. A number of things happened that we can talk about later if you like, and they really led me to realize that in a way that putting a ball in a hole with a stick never can, science unlocks an opportunity to make a permanent contribution, like however small, to mankind's progress. And the reason I start with this little story is not to brag, but to try to emphasize that I think that in many ways, despite us all taking very different roads to get here, to get to MIT, many, if not most of us, probably share in a common belief that, that science has the power and maybe the promise to make the world a better place, the betterment of humankind that MIT's mission statement codifies. And so it's with that mindset that I come here and end up on this panel, with the belief that MIT should divest its endowment from fossil fuels. Because it's hypocritical of an institution at the very forefront of climate science and renewable energy technology to at the same time be investing in the fossil fuel industry. This is an industry that is causing rather than curbing the climate crisis, an industry that last year spent $674 billion developing fossil fuel reserves that the scientific community has unanimously labeled unsafe to burn. That's because current fossil fuel reserves in the world are already 3 times greater than our carbon budget. That's the amount of carbon we can afford to burn to stay within the 2-degree global rising guardrail limit that almost every country on the planet has agreed to. This is an industry that last year spent $417 million lobbying and donating in Washington against legislation that could act against climate change. And this is an institution at the very heart of targeted and directed disinformation campaigns that sabotage our science, that confuse our public, and that slander our peers and our friends and our colleagues. This is an industry that undermines our very raison d'etre, the very promise of science that caused a 15-year-old kid with a funny English accent to put down a golf club and pick up a physics textbook because he thought that doing something real matters. Now, the problem is that politics and not technology is now the bottleneck in mitigating climate change, as sad as that is for an MIT audience to hear, I guess. But that's where divestment comes in. Because through the institution, you and I wield a megaphone to public opinion and an immense capacity to effect change. And we need to shout through that megaphone if we're ever going to inspire the electorate that will boldly demand real non-business-as-usual leadership, a shift in an energy revolution that will take our energy technologies, the things I work on day in, day out of the lab and into the real world. But it's not just like blind optimism here. I don't wake up with divestment tattooed on my forehead, you know. I worry about it every day, and I'll be the first to admit that addressing climate change is, you know, it's an understatement to say it's difficult. And Professor John Sterman, one of Dr. Jay's colleagues at Sloan, he often talks about the need for a meaningful climate change action movement to be on the scale, the audacity, and the strategy commensurate with the civil rights movement. Back there and back then, Martin Luther King said, "There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor popular, nor politic, but one must take it anyway because it is right." Right now, today, in this room, MIT stands at the crossroads in history, a time that demands bold leadership and meaningful action commensurate with the scale of this opportunity, a time for standing up and for finding our moral courage and for asking, what can I do? I don't think divestment is the be-all and end-all, but it's a pretty good place to start. Thank you.